The following is a presentation of Muddy River News.
Okay, we are back on the record in case 18 CF 492. Mr. Wiley is present. His counsel, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Barnard, on behalf of the state. We're outside the presence of the jury. Counsel, anything that needs to be raised before we call the jury?
No, Judge. I just want to alert everybody. I have the document camera. It's on, it goes off, I can turn it back on. But I road tested it. I'm reasonably confident that I can make it work. But I just want to note that it's going to be part of, there will be documents that go up on the screen if they are admitted. Third witness.
Okay. How many witnesses do you foresee in the morning?
This morning?
Yes. Three?
Yes.
All right. And you think that that should take up the hour
so.
15? Okay.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Mr. Nelson, anything on behalf of the defense?
Your Honor, we would ask that any witnesses would be excluded.
I do not see any witnesses that...
Yes, I will for the record grant the motion to exclude witnesses. Counsel, I'm not familiar with the witnesses, so I'm going to have to rely on both sides to police their own witnesses, but the motion to exclude is granted. Anyone in the courtroom who is going to be a witness will be required to leave at this time.
And Judge, I have, for what it's worth, I have admonished all of my witnesses that they do not be until the release from the scene.
Again, I am dependent upon the two of you because I'm not going to be able to recognize a witness if they happen in the courtroom. All right, so with that, let's have the jury.
All rise. Texas Circuit Court is now reconvened. The Honorable Michael L. Atterbury, Judge presiding. You may be seated.
Okay, the record should reflect that all 12 members of the jury, the 3 alternate jurors, are all present in the courtroom. Mr. Barnard, you may call a witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please call Andrew Abbott.
solemnly swear that the testimony may give in a cause now opinion before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Barnard, you may inquire.
Thank you, Judge. Sir, could you introduce yourself to the jury by telling them your full name?
Andrew Abbott.
What is your professional occupation?
I'm a police officer in the city of Hamilton, Illinois.
How long have you been employed by the city of Hamilton as a police officer?
Approximately 8 months.
What is your assignment or detail with that department?
Patrol officer.
Officer Abbott, is that your first employment in law enforcement?
No, it's not.
What was your first employment in law enforcement?
I was a Adams County correctional officer,
From when to when?
2014 to 2017.
What was your next employment in law enforcement?
As a Quincy police officer,
When did you start with the Quincy Police Department?
March of 2017.
What training did you go through as part of your employment with the Quincy Police Department as a patrol officer? Just in a general sense, so we can get some information.
I was sent to the police academy in Urbana, Illinois. Graduated from there, and then I went to patrol officer, straight to Quincy.
When were you hired by the Quincy Police Department as a patrol officer?
March of 2017.
What was your assignment or assignments within the Quincy Police Department? And the reason I ask you that is I know there are different provisions, assignments, details, etc. Share that with us, if you would.
Yes, I was a patrol officer. I worked traffic crashes, responded to disturbances, to some medical calls, theft reports, things of that nature.
Would it be fair for us to assume that it would be the general kinds of things that patrol officers would be assigned to or respond to?
Yes.
Let me take you back to January 2018, Officer Abbott, and I want to hone in on the afternoon of January 20th of 2018. Can you tell us whether or not you were assigned to a call at 7th and Kentucky?
Yes, I was.
What time were you assigned or told about whatever the incident was? Roughly.
I was dispatched at approximately 2:42.
Why were you dispatched to 7th?
I was dispatched for an AED event.
AED.
Automated external defibrillator.
What was the specific address of the place to which you were dispatched?
718 Kentucky Street, apartment 3 up in
Was that all the information that you were given when dispatched, as best you recall?
I believe so.
What time did you arrive?
I don't recall the exact time. I arrived on scene and was being dispatched at approximately 2:42.
Can you tell us where you were when you were dispatched? That might help us figure out the approximate time between dispatch and arrival.
As far as where I was,
When you got the call?
I don't recall.
Can you give us an estimation of how long or how short a time it took for you to get to wherever you were to 7th Kentucky?
I would say within a few minutes.
Officer Abbott, when you arrived, what did you first see or hear that was pertinent to you?
When I arrived on scene, I grabbed my AD from my squad car and started walking towards the residence.
Would that be apartment number 3 at 718?
I remember that building being a kind of an apartment building, so just walking towards that apartment building. I saw a male and female running out.
All right. And when you say running out, where were they running from? Would it have been from that apartment building or some other?
From the apartment building.
Tell us, Officer Abbott, what it was you noticed about them as they came running out.
I noticed that there was a baby, a very young child. They were running out, and the female was screaming, "Help my baby."
Did they approach you?
They were coming toward me, yes.
When they got to you, what did... let me back up one question. Who was holding the baby?
I believe Christina Duffner was.
And would that be the person who you knew to be or learned to be the mother of the baby?
I'm not sure who the mother of the baby.
When Christina approached, what did she do with the baby? Did she hand the baby to you? Did she hold on to the baby? Did she lay the baby down?
I don't recall if I took the baby or not, but I remember somebody put the baby down on the grass so I could assist her.
When you say assist, what kind of assistance did you give, officer?
I wanted to check to see if she was breathing, had a pulse.
Let me ask you about that. What, first of all, in a kind of a global sense, in an overall sense, describe how the baby looked.
I remember her having, her lips were blue color, just lifeless,
Lifeless?
wasn't moving, fidgeting, anything like that.
You made reference to a pulse and breathing. What did you notice about whether or not, start with a pulse, was there a pulse?
I did not find a pulse.
How about breathing?
I did not observe her breathing.
Given all of those things, what action did you take?
I started unbuttoning her onesie and started to use one to hook up the AED to her.
Now, explain for us what is an AED. I know you described it as automated external defibrillator. What kind of machine is that?
So, use those machines like where people are going through cardiac arrest, people who aren't breathing, the pulse, it provides a shock to help get the heart going.
I assume that in the course of your training you have received training in how to operate this equipment.
Yes.
Did you follow that training when you attempted to shock the baby?
Yes.
Tell us what that process involves.
With an AED, you just looks like a little briefcase kind of deal. You unzip it, you open it up, and it has two pads hooked to it. And it has like a plastic covering over the pads, the sticky pads, and you take those off, and then you set one on the side and one over the chest.
Did you do that?
I attempted to when I took off the plastic, the sticky pad. I do remember it kind of fell in the grass, which then had some grass particles on there. And I still tried to hook it up to her at the time. And the AED will talk to you. It kind of tells you exactly what to do, and it'll say shock advise, or it'll say start CPR.
As best you recall, Officer Abbott, what kind of instructions did you get from the machines in the course of doing what you just shared?
What I remember, I don't never recall for a shock. It said start CPR, so I started CPR.
Can you tell us what technique you used in applying or performing CPR to this individual?
I used my 2 fingers and placed it on the middle of her chest and started CPR pushing down.
While you were doing that, can you tell us whether or not any other law enforcement or medical personnel arrived?
The Quincy Fire Department arrived on the scene.
What were you doing when they arrived on the scene? You were applying CPR? When they arrived on the scene, tell us what happened in terms of medical attention to this patient. Whether or not you continued, they joined you, or they took over.
The fire department took over, and they resumed medical.
During the time you were performing CPR, during the time you were attempting to engage the AED, describe for us, Officer Abbott, whether or not this infant began to breathe, kept its pulse, or began to move.
She was the same when I first observed her until the fire department took over.
When the fire department took over, Officer Abbott, what did you do then in terms of remaining on the scene, talking with people, or leaving the scene? As the case may be, share that with us.
I remained on the scene. I spoke to Mr. Wiley
Okay?
about what happened.
All right. What did he tell you?
He said that he was watching Ariana and my Christina daughter was at work.
Did he get into any further detail or not?
Yes, he said that he laid Ariana down for a nap around 1:30 and that he fell asleep on the couch. He said he fell asleep for about 45 minutes to an hour. When he woke up, he noticed that Ariana wasn't breathing and her lips were blue.
Did he tell you what he did when he noticed that?
He said that he tried to call 911 and that it rang 2 to 3 times. And nobody answered. So he said he tried to call again and no one answered.
What did he tell you about what he did next or who he called next?
Mr. Wiley said he called Christina Delford and let her know that her daughter wasn't breathing and that Christina was the one who called 911.
Did he tell you whether or not he called anyone before he called 911 or called Christina Dunford and got through to her? Can you tell us, as best you recall, Officer, how long you remained on the scene? You.
So long ago, approximately an hour and a half to 2 hours. I can't recall the exact time. I left the scene, but we were waiting back at the police station in dusk time.
Hour and a half, 2 hours, and I realize that's an approximation from what it sounds like you shared. What else did you do while you were at the scene other than talk to Travis?
I photographed the apartment, the bassinet, said that she was sleeping in that.
Okay. How were you directed to the apartment? Who showed you where the apartment was? If you remember.
I don't recall.
Anything else you did while you were there at the scene that was involved in this call? Did you talk with Christina Dunn while you were at the scene?
All right. Sir, would you try very hard to keep your voice up? You have a soft voice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it may be hard to hear for some members of the jury at times. So just make an effort to speak as loudly and into the microphone as you can.
You may need to lean forward a bit, so you can help us that way as well.
That's okay. That's all right. Go ahead, Mr. Martin.
I think my question was, did you talk to Christina Dunford as well?
I remember her being on scene when I first arrived, but I don't remember questioning her.
What, I know this is kind of a lawyer word, and I apologize. What was her demeanor? How did she appear to you?
When I arrived on scene and doing CPR, she was very upset, crying.
How about Travis Wiley?
Mr. Wiley appeared upset as well.
Did you talk to anyone at the scene, as best you recall, other than Travis Wiley and Capps? Not Christina Dunford. Anyone else you talked to?
I remember Officer Hollensteiner, hospice Sparks back then, but I remember she showed up, but I don't remember the conversation I had with her.
Okay. Anything else that sticks out or that was involved in your official duties there at the scene that you can recall and share with us?
I remember Mr. Wiley saying that
I'm going to stop you there. At what point, so we can establish kind of where this situation has occurred? Was this during your single conversation with him, or did you have more than one conversation?
it was when I was questioning him as to what happened.
Okay. What did he tell you?
Just after he called Christina Dunford to let her know about her daughter, he said that he also performed CPR.
Okay. Did he show you how?
I did not ask.
Okay. Anything else that you can recall that was pertinent to your involvement in this call?
Not that I recall.
All right. As you look around the room here, Officer Abbott, do you see the man who you recognize to be Travis Wiley, with whom you spoke there at the scene?
Yes.
Would you point him out and describe his clothing?
He's sitting next to Mr. Nelson in a suit and tie.
Silver tie, gray suit,
Yes.
gray shirt.
Yes.
I'd ask the record to reflect your honor that the witnesses identified the defendant.
It will.
That's all the questions I have, Officer. Stay where you are. Mr. Nelson, next question.
All right, Mr. Nelson, you may cross-examine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer, I think I have really just one question, perhaps two. When you spoke with Travis, he said that he laid Ariana down for a nap at 1:30 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so Travis didn't tell you that he himself laid down for a nap at 1:30, but that he laid Ariana down for a nap at 1:30.
Yes, he said he laid it down for a nap at 1:30.
Thank you.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Sir, you may step down. Thank you very much. Is the witness released from
Yes.
the subpoena?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Barnard, you may call another witness.
You will call Jessica Hollensteiner.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony may give in a cause now pending before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And before we begin, please try to speak into the microphone and keep your voice up.
Okay.
All right. With that, Mr. Barnard, you may inquire.
Would you introduce yourself to the jury by telling them your full name?
My name is Jessica Hollensteiner.
Ms. Hollensteiner, what is your profession or occupation?
I'm currently a detective with the Quincy Police Department.
How long have you held that rank or assignment?
A couple of years at least, but I've lost count.
How long have you been employed by the Quincy Police Department as a law enforcement officer?
Just over 9 years.
Was that your first employment as a law enforcement officer?
No, it was not.
What was?
I was a patrol officer with the Hannibal, Missouri Police Department for approximately 2.5 years.
Helping me with my math, if you would, how long have you been a law enforcement officer in total?
About 11.5 years.
When were you employed by the Quincy Police Department?
October 14th of 2014?
When you were hired as, I assume, a police officer,
Yes.
what was your assignment?
Well, it varied. I've worked day shift patrol, night shift patrol, and our power shift, which is an afternoon shift.
Realizing that you were kind of what I describe as a lateral hire, as opposed to someone who has to go through training as a first-time law enforcement officer. That's why I asked you that question. What was your first assignment? Did you start out as a patrol officer?
Yes, I did.
All right. I want to take you back to January 2018 and focus on the 20th of January, particularly mid-afternoon. Can you tell us whether or not you were dispatched to an address here in Quincy, 718 Kentucky Apartment?
Yes, I was dispatched to 718 Kentucky on January 20th, 2018. It was approximately 2:42 in the afternoon.
What was the reason you were told to go there?
There was an ambulance call at that location.
When did you arrive?
It would have been just shortly after that dispatch time, but I don't have the exact time.
I got you. Can you help us with where you were when you got the call?
No, that I don't have that exact information.
Describe for us whether or not it would have been a long delay or a very short time or anywhere in between in terms of the time between the call and the collect.
Realistically, if you're running lights and sirens to an emergency call, you can get anywhere in Quincy with just a few minutes. It wouldn't have been a long delay.
Sorry. Now, tell us what you encountered, who you encountered when you got there.
So when I arrived on scene, Officer Andrew Abbott was already on scene. I spoke with Christina Dunford.
What did you learn about Christina Dunford in terms of her involvement in whatever the medical issue was?
Christina is the mother of the patient, which would have been Ariana Hoffman.
patient. Officer Hollensteiner, Detective Hollensteiner, tell us about who you saw that appeared to have any relationship or involvement with Ariana Hoffman, including Ariana Hoffman.
So from the time that I arrived, first responders, medical personnel were on scene. So when I spoke with Christina, Ariana was already in the ambulance, being prepared to be transported to Blessing Hospital.
What agency transported her to Blessing?
It would have been the Adams County Ambulance Service, I guess.
Given that Ariana was being prepared for transport, can you tell us whether or not you looked inside the ambulance and got a look at Ariana or not?
I don't recall ever looking in there to see her.
All right. What then, given that the patient was in preparation for transport, already in the ambulance, did you do there at the scene to follow up?
Well, initially with Christina, I put her in contact with medical personnel so that she too could be transported to Blessing Hospital to be with her daughter.
And how did that occur?
She eventually was transported.
By whom?
Medical personnel. I'm not sure which vehicle she took, but she was transported by medical personnel to Blessing Hospital.
I'm guessing that occurred at the same time or shortly after the ambulance left?
Correct.
When Ariana and her mother, Christina Dunford, leave the scene, what then do you do to follow up?
I met with a male subject who identified himself as Travis Wiley.
Why did you meet with him or approach him?
He happened to be there at the residence as well, so I wanted to speak to him to see if he knew anything.
Where did the conversation take place?
If I recall correctly, we were outside when I made contact with him.
Did you talk with him?
I did.
Where did you talk? Out there outside? Or
Out on the scene. We did not leave the scene to speak.
Was any other law enforcement officer there in your presence while you talked with the man identified as Travis Wiley?
I had a trainee, Officer Brady Sloop, with me.
Who took responsibility for talking to Ms. Wiley?
I did.
All right. Tell us about that. Tell us about that conversation. What did you learn? What did you ask?
So, Travis Wiley identified himself as the person who was caring for Ariana Hoffman at the time that this incident had transpired, leading to the ambulance being there. He stated that he had placed Ariana down for a nap in her bassinet, and he fell asleep then on the couch near her. Travis then went on to say that when he woke up, he noticed that Ariana was blue in color and was not breathing.
45 minutes to an hour in terms of the nap that he took? Is that how we describe it?
Correct, to my knowledge.
What did he tell you about what he did when he noticed Ariana's color and the fact that she wasn't breathing?
Travis stated that he then called 911, but could not get through to them. He stated he then called Christina to notify her that she needed to come home from work.
Did he tell you about calling anybody else?
He did not.
What did he tell you about what, if anything, he did after his conversation with Christina when he told her about Ariana?
For me personally, he did not elaborate on anything else that took place during the time after the call to her.
Tell us how he appeared.
He was not crying, but other than that, I can't say, that he wasn't in distress to what I was picking up on.
Okay. that's your general recollection.
Just my general recollection.
Did you learn anything else from him pertinent to the situation there at the scene?
No, other than, like I said, he had stated that he placed her down for a nap in the bassinet, and when he woke up, he had described the condition she was in. Those are the only things that we really discussed.
Okay. Did he tell you anything about her condition when he laid her down? She appeared to be sick, she appeared to be fine, anything in between, or anything that you recall?
No.
Okay. How long did you remain at the scene?
Until the completion of the processing by Detective Towdy and crime scene technician Emily Pizzella.
How long would that have been?
I don't know.
Minutes or hours?
Hours.
While you were there, after the ambulance leaves, after Christina leaves, after you talked with Travis Wiley, as you related to us, what did Travis Wiley do, including where did he go, whether or not he appeared to just stay by himself? When you were in prison?
I do recall that another subject had arrived on scene, but I do not recall what that relationship was to him, or, if he had left particularly with them.
Male or female?
A female.
Did this female arrive on foot or in a car?
In a vehicle.
And when this female arrived, tell us what Travis Wiley did. Did he approach this female? Did she get out of the vehicle? Did he get in the vehicle? Did they leave the scene? Share that with us.
I particularly just remember them speaking with Detective Towdy. I can't be certain what conversations took place between her and Mr. Wiley.
While you were there at the scene, you mentioned that you remained until Detective Towdy arrived and the scene was basically cleared and such. When Detective Towdy arrived, what did he do in a general sense? I'm going to ask him all those questions, but
Sure.
I just want to establish it.
Sorry. We call it processing the scene. So there would have been photographs taken, any evidence collected, and that would have been done by Detective Towdy and, like I said, crime scene technician Emily Pizzella at that time.
Why would that have occurred? Describe that for us, given what you shared with us that this decision
An ambulance call.
Yeah.
Right. So with any possible death investigation, detectives are called to the scene to do more in-depth processing, and at that point, it was undetermined what the outcome of this was going to be.
or why it happened?
Or why, yes, correct, or why it happened.
So that would, as you described, this being an ambulance call, involving detectives would be a matter of policy, a matter of routine policy.
Routine policy procedure, yes.
Final question, what time, as best you can recall, Detective Homicide, did you leave the scene?
I cannot be certain on that without seeing dispatch notes.
I'm going to retract what I said about the last question.
Okay.
As you look around the corner, do you see a man you knew to be Travis Wiley when you talked to him there at 7th Detective?
Yes, I do.
Would you point him out and describe his clothing?
Sitting at the defense table in a dark gray or black suit, white tie.
Again, Your Honor, as the record reflects, the witness has identified the defendant.
He will.
And I have no further questions. Thank you, Detective. You've got any questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Nelson, you may cross-examine.
Officer, Detective. You said that Travis told you that he called 911 and also called Kristen, correct?
Correct.
And I believe Mr. Barnard asked you if Travis told you that he called anybody else.
Correct.
And that your answer to that was, no, that Travis did not tell you if he had called
don't recall, but assuming that, or since it's not in my report, I'm going to say that I likely did not ask and get an answer, so.
And just to clarify, was it that Travis didn't tell you that he had called anyone else, or that he told you that he had not called anyone else?
He did not tell me he did call anybody. He also did not say he did not call anybody, to clarify and answer that.
Can you redirect, Mr. Barnett?
Just one, and tell me whether or not this changes your answer in any regard. When I asked you, did he tell you whether or not he called anyone else, I meant, did he tell you whether or not he called anyone else after he became aware Christina was in bad shape? Or excuse me, Ariana was in bad shape. My question should have been, did he tell you whether or not he called anyone else before he called 911?
And no, he did not.
Okay. That's all I got. Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Nelson?
No.
All right, you may step back. And is the witness released from...
You are released. Thank you.
And with that, you may call another witness, Mr. Barnett.
People call Ariana, I apologize. People call Christina Dunford. My apologies. Dunford, if you would approach the clerk and raise your right hand.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Right here. And please pull that microphone up close and try to keep your voice up, please. Thank you. Now go ahead, Mr. Barnett.
Thank you, Judge. And would you introduce yourself to the jurors by telling them your full name, please?
My name is Christina Dunford. E-N-G-L-E.
Have you ever been known as Christina Dunford?
Yes.
The surname Dunford, would that relate to a marriage scenario?
Yes.
And tell us about that. Who were you married to whose last name is Dunford?
I was married to Aaron Dunford.
When and for how long would you have been married to?
We were married for a little over 8 years.
From when to when?
July of 09 to March of 18.
I take it, based on some information that we gathered, as of January of 2018, the two of you, that is Mr. Dunford, were not living.
No.
Were divorce proceedings pending at that time, or did that happen?
It was later.
Okay. You stated that your last name, that you go by, is Engel, correct?
Yes.
And is that your maiden name?
It's my married name.
Okay, you remarried?
Yes.
Or you married since that time? And the person whose last name is Engel, who you married after marriage to Mr. Dunford, when you married?
Me and Matthew were married on June 12th,
Oh.
or June 11th of last year.
Ms. Engel, before I go any further, I owe you an apology. In that, I have misspelled your daughter Ariana's name. I spelled labeled as ARIANNA. I have been reminded that it's not correct spelling. Would be helpful.
Her name is spelled AIRYANNA.
Again, ma'am, my apologies. Ms. Engel, I'm going to ask you some questions about the events of January 20, 2018. Some events that occurred before then, some since then. Some of them may not be easy. All right? You and I have talked about this, correct? And I'll let you know that I apologize for any difficult feelings these questions may cause you. You have, or have, a daughter by the name of Ariane.
Yes.
What was her given name or surname? Often is the name we have.
Yes.
And where does that name often come from?
That is my maiden name.
Ms. Engel, when was Ariane born?
October 25th, 2017.
Who was the father of Ariane?
Jordan Bell. Or his legal name is Jordan Paget.
Where was Ariane born?
Here in Quincy,
At.
Lexington Hospital.
I ask you some questions about Ariana's health history. Prenatal, postnatal, or after she was born, up until January. Let's start with prenatal. Describe, if you would, her prenatal course. Were there any unusual complications or difficulties?
No.
Born on October 25th, 2017.
Yes.
Describe for us whether or not the birthing process, giving birth to Ariana, were there any complications here?
No.
After Ariana's birth, who was her pediatrician?
Dr. Colbert at Blessing Physicians here in Quincy.
Ms. Engel, tell us about Ariana's medical condition or medical evaluation, medical care between the time she was born and up to January 25th, 2018. And what I'm talking about there is I know babies have periodic visits. Tell us about that.
Everything was fine. She was healthy. She was teething at the time, and she was also constipated because we had just switched to a different formula.
In terms of kind of physician involvement, how many visits to the pediatrician would you have taken Ariana to between the time she was born and January 20th, as best you recall?
2 or 3.
Some people call these well baby
Yep.
visits. Was there anything that was learned in the course of those well baby visits that signaled she was having any problems? You mentioned teething. Was there anything about that struck you as abnormal or unusual in terms of growth and development?
She's the only child that I have that's ever gotten a tooth that early.
Okay.
But other than that, no.
Anything about the constipation that alarmed you or caused you to visit a doctor or call a doctor other than just treating as out of the home with over-the-counter products?
Nope, I had spoke to her pediatrician, and she said that it will be normal and it would level out.
All right. Anything at all about Ariana's growth and development from birth to January 20th that jumped out at you as unusual, problematic, concerning, anything? Let's kind of home in now a little closer to January 20th. And I'll start with a week before January 20th. January 13th-ish to January 20th. During that week, how did she appear to you to be in terms of her growth and development, other than teething and being constipated?
Other than that, everything was fine.
Any unusual coughing or breathing problems?
No.
Any congestion
No.
that was audible to you as mom?
No.
How about her, how she appeared in terms of happiness? Was she fussy? Was she always crying? Was she any of that?
No, she was a very, very, very happy baby.
In fact, during the week and right up to the day before January 20th, did you place her in the care of mom and dad?
My mom and my stepdad, yes.
Excuse me. Again, my apologies. When would that have been?
I believe approximately 48 hours before.
Okay. Could it have been as close as the day before, January 20th? Did you know?
It could have been, but I'm not 100% certain.
All right. And in terms of your mom and dad, or your mom and your stepdad, caring for Ariana close in time before January 20th, was there, what did you see or observe, hear, anything that would have concerned you about her health?
No.
Did you give any instructions to your mom and stepdad, hey, keep an eye on Ariana because of this or that I noticed about her?
I just told them about the teething and she might be a little constipated, but
other than the timing of her teething, I'll withdraw that question. Start with this. Do you have other children?
I had 4 others.
All right. Other than the timing of Ariana's teething, what, if anything, did you notice about Ariana that concerned you about her growth, development, or health relative to or compared to your other children that were born to you? Okay.
Nothing.
Any red flags at all?
No.
The morning of January 18th, I'm asking the same questions, then we'll come back to January 20th. The morning of January 20th. Tell us how Ariana appeared to you to be in terms of her growth, development, or health.
She was perfectly fine. She was babbling like a baby does. She was a little fussy, but nothing to the extreme. She was happy.
Coughing?
No.
Congestion?
No.
Runny nose?
No.
Fever?
No.
Now I want to switch gears for a moment. We'll come back to the events of January 20th. As of January 20th, where were you living?
7th Kentucky,
What was the address?
718.
An apartment?
Yes.
An apartment?
Yes.
What apartment?
Um,
And the number?
There was a letter, I believe, or no, I think it was 3.
Okay. How long did you live there as of January 20th?
I believe 3 years.
Who lived there with you as of January 20th?
Mr. Wiley,
Who else?
no one.
Other than you and Ariana? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
How long had he lived there?
Since December, beginning of December.
2017?
Yes.
Let's talk about the circumstances of how he came to live there. And I'll begin with, how long as of December, January 2017, had you known Travis Wiley?
I've known him, it would have been almost 10 years.
And in December, did he ask you if he could stay?
I offered to let him stay.
Did he accept your offer?
Yes.
We don't need to get into the details, and I won't, but in substance, would it be fair for us to assume that he told you needed a place to stay?
Yes.
You offered,
Yes.
and he accepted.
Yes.
What did he bring with him other than his clothes?
As far as I know, just his clothes.
Did you, after he moved in, at some point in time, develop a relationship with him, an intimate relationship?
Yes.
Did there come a time after he moved in when you became employed or became here at 7th and Brothers?
Yes.
When were you hired at Burger? Let's say relative to January 20th, if that helps. How long have you worked there?
I believe it would have been maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
What was your job at Burger? General customer service, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
On the morning of January 20th, what arrangements did you make so that you could go home?
Mr. Wiley was going to watch her until I got off.
What was your shift that day?
I believe it was 11 to 3 p.m. or 4 p.m.
What errands did you run before you got to work?
I went in, grabbed my paycheck, and cashed my check.
So you went to a bank or some other place to do that? So what time approximately would you have left if your shift began at 11 so that you would have time to go there, get your check, go somewhere else and cash it, and come back?
I'm not sure what time I left.
Would have been 5 to 11. You, would it be fair for us to assume you gave yourself some time to get that area done?
Yes.
Now, any particular instructions you gave to Mr. Wiley when you got to work?
If the teething got any worse and she got fussier, or if something was wrong with the constipation, to give me a call and I would come home.
This kind of general stuff?
Yep.
All right. Tell us about whether or not you had ever had him watch Ariana when you left home. Have you done that?
Yes.
Okay. And as best you can recall, how many times you have left Ariana with him before January 20th to watch Ariana?
Maybe 5 or 6 times.
All right. Any problems with those events? Or
No.
There has, I think, been a question posed to, or perhaps a statement made, let's put it that way, that at some time in the week or weeks before January 20th, there was a moment, a short time, an incident, however you want to describe it, when you thought Ariana had stopped breathing.
She had held her breath,
Okay?
but she did not stop breathing.
All right. And where would you have been at that time?
I was in my bedroom. We were on my bed.
And how long before that, before the day of January 20th, would that have been? Best you
Maybe
can
a
recall.
week.
You described as her holding her breath. How long or how short a period of time did she do that?
Not very long, but it was noticeable.
Okay. When she stopped holding her breath, did she start breathing again normal?
Yes.
That ever happened since then?
No.
Ever happened before then?
No.
Did you feel it necessary to call medical personnel?
No. I've dealt with it before
With Ariana or other children?
with my 13-year-old.
Okay. Did it happen again after you noticed it?
No.
Ariana appeared to be fine
Yes.
before she held her breath?
Yes.
After she held her breath?
Yes.
Now, you start your shift at 11 o'clock in the morning on January 20th, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to show you some photographs. I'll ask you whether or not you recognize them. Okay? I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Exhibit number 1. It's a photograph. You recognize who the subject of that photograph is?
Yes.
Who is it?
It was my daughter, Carrie.
When approximately was that photograph taken?
That photo was taken November 9th
And why do you know it was November 9th?
because I posted on Facebook.
Does that photograph accurately show Ariana as she looked on November 9th, I assume 2017?
Yes.
I move for introduction into evidence of People's Exhibit 1.
Have you seen the photos? I have, Your Honor. I don't. Without objection, that photograph, People's Exhibit 1, would be admitted.
And share it with the jury on the screen.
Commission wants an objection? Without objection, you may publish.
You now see on the screen Ms. Engel, what's People's Exhibit number 1 is what's on the screen, that photograph which you've identified as your daughter.
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Exhibit number 2. Again, it's a photograph, take a look at it, tell me whether or not you recognize what's shown in that photograph.
That is my old apartment.
And does that photograph kind of generally show the face of the apartment building?
It's the back half.
Okay. Can you visualize or see which apartment yours would have been in that photograph?
Mine is the one with the light on.
All right. And does that photograph accurately show the back of the building where your apartment is located by the light that is on inside the apartment?
Yes.
And would that have been where you lived on January 20th, 2018?
Yes.
I move for introduction into evidence of People's Exhibit number 2, Your Honor.
Mr. Nelson, have you seen this?
Yes.
Do you have objection to its admission? No. Or its publication? No. Okay, without objection, People's Exhibit 2 will be admitted into evidence, and you may publish it.
Ms. Engel, the photograph which is on the screen, is that the photograph you just identified as the rear of the apartment building where your apartment is located?
Yes.
And I am circling with a laser printer an area where the light's on. Is that your apartment?
Yes.
And so I guess we would be looking north toward Broadway in that photograph. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is that generally how you would get to your apartment, is from the back of the building?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you some questions about some features of your apartment, some furniture, okay? There has been reference to the bed sort of thing called a rocking play.
Yes.
Did you own such a piece of furniture as of January 20th?
Yes.
And is that something that you would place Ariana in when she wasn't in her crib sleeping?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Engel, I'm holding what has been marked with an evidence sticker as People's Exhibit number 3. From the part that is not wrapped in evidence covering, can you tell us whether or not you identify this?
Yes.
What is it? And I don't want to go through the process of unwrapping it, but can you describe for us whether or not this rock and play would basically open up so that the bedding or chair or combination of those two would open up so that you could place Ariana in?
Yes.
Would you routinely place Ariana in that rock and play when she wasn't in her crib at night sleeping?
It was that, and then she had a frog chair that she would also sit in.
What's a frog chair?
It helps sit them up so they can sit up.
Okay. Now let's look at People's Exhibit number 4. Your Honor, I sure people's exhibit number 4 of the council. I'm now showing it to the witness. Ms. Engel, that is a photograph. Let me ask you whether or not you recognize what's shown in that photograph.
Yes.
In a general sense, in terms of location, would the things shown in that photograph be approximately where they were when you left the morning of January 20th?
The rock and play was in the bedroom when I had left.
Okay. And when you went back into the, I'll get to that. I'll hold that. What part of the apartment does the photograph show in the general sense?
The kitchen.
Can you tell us whether or not in that photograph there is a couch shown?
Yes.
Okay. And was that couch there the morning of the 20th when you left?
Yes.
Is the rock and play that you just identified as people's exhibit number 3 shown in that photograph as well?
Yes.
Other than the location of the rock and play where it was when you left for the morning, does that photograph accurately show the kitchen area of your apartment, including the couch?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to jump forward here for just a moment. And we'll come back. But there came a time when you returned to the apartment in the afternoon on January 20th, having been called by Mr. Wiley, correct?
Yes.
And when you returned to the apartment, where did you find Ariana?
She was in the rock and play.
And where was the rock and play located?
In front of the couch.
Can you tell us whether or not that photograph shows the location of the rock and play where you found Ariana when you got back to your apartment?
Yes.
Does that accurately show where it was when you got back?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move for introduction of the evidence of People's Exhibit number 4.
Any objection to its admission, People's Exhibit 4, Mr. Nelson?
No objection.
Any objection to its being published?
No.
People's Exhibit 4 is admitted, and you may publish when you're ready, John.
Thank you, Judge.
Do we need the lights off, counsel, with that?
That might help, Judge. There is glare. All right. Ms. Engel, I'm going to use the laser pointer to help us understand what's in the photograph. I am focusing the laser pointer with a circular motion on a yellow structure in the lower right-hand corner of that photograph. What's that?
That is the rock and play.
And I'm now focusing on that part of the photograph with circular motion, the area on the left half of the photograph. What is that?
That is the couch.
Okay. The location of the rock and play relative to the couch as you found it when you came back to the apartment in mid-afternoon of January 20th. How close is that rock and play to that couch? Can you help us with that?
It would
Your
be-
best estimation.
It would be basically, you'd be able to have enough room to stand in between both of them.
Could you reach out from the couch if you're laying on the couch or sitting on the couch and touch the rock and play?
Yes.
Okay. Pull the lights in. All right, let's leave them down if I may for just a moment. Take that back, let's pull them the vehicle. Ms. Engel. at work to Burger King in the afternoon. What happened at about 2:40?
I was told by one of my coworkers that I had a phone call and that it was an emergency.
I take it that would have been the Burger King phones, the Burger King
Yes.
line that you were called to by your coworker, right?
Yes.
All right. Pick up the phone.
Yes.
Who was it on the other line?
Mr. Wiley,
What did he tell you?
you need to get home now. The baby's not breathing.
What else did he tell you about the baby's condition?
Nothing.
What did you ask him when he told you the baby was not breathing?
I didn't ask him anything. I kind of did the WTF issue. I dropped the phone and told them that I was leaving, that my daughter wasn't breathing, and I had to go.
Did you ask him if he called 911?
I did not.
All right. What did you do in terms of calling 911?
When I was running out, I panicked, and I called Mr. Wiley back. I asked him why he didn't call 911, and I hung up, and then I called 911 and was driving home on the phone with the 911 dispatcher.
What information did you have on your way home as to whether or not you called 911 when you posed the question, why didn't you call 911? How did you know he did or didn't?
I didn't. I just panicked.
Okay. All right. And when you asked him, why didn't you call 911, did he respond in any way?
No, because I hung up the phone.
Okay. What did you then do? You're in your car, right?
Yes.
You're on your phone, right?
Yes.
What did you do?
I called 911, and I told them that my daughter wasn't breathing. I gave them the address. They were asking me questions, and I told them that I was not there, that I was on my way.
On your way home to your apartment, did you call anyone else?
I called her father, I believe,
And her father was, I know you shared the name was,
Jordan Paget.
and as best you knew it, where was he?
He was at Hannibal at the Linding Fest.
Okay. 7th and Broadway to 7th in Kentucky. How long did that trip take?
Not very long.
So right down 7th Street? Or
Yes.
When you get to 7th in Kentucky, to the apartment building, you get out of the car, I assume, right?
Yes.
Who do you see? Who do you encounter?
When I pulled in, Mr. Wiley was walking out of the apartment with a cigarette in his mouth and putting a jacket on.
When you say coming out of the apartment toward Kentucky from the south?
He was walking south towards State Street.
Oh, okay. So would you have parked behind the
Yes.
apartment closer to State Street?
Yes.
Okay. What happens then? You encounter him, he's coming out, he's got a cigarette in his mouth, putting a jacket on. What happens?
I said, "Where's my baby?" And he said, "Oh, she's in here." And
When you,
I went in.
I'm sorry, I didn't know. When you said, "Where's my baby?" Did you pose it or say that like you just did here, calmly, casually, or did you have another tone?
I was in panic mode.
All right. How did he respond when you said, "Where's my baby?"
Oh, she's in here.
What happened next?
I rushed into the apartment, and that's when I found her
Where did you find her?
in the rocking place.
In the position that's shown in People's Exhibit 4,
As best
in the photograph?
that I could tell, yes.
Zangle, I need to ask you share with the jury what you noticed about your daughter Ariana when you first saw her that afternoon.
She wasn't breathing. Her lips were blue, and she was great.
She was great. Was she responsive? Did she move in any way?
No,
Fidget? Reach out?
no.
Her eyes, were they open or closed?
Closed.
When you saw her, what did you do?
I picked her up and I yelled her name in her face, and she didn't respond. So I laid her on the ground and I tried to do CPR as best as I could.
Help us with how you do that. How did you do
I put 3 fingers on her chest and I was trying to do compressions, but I wasn't sure how hard I was supposed to push. I didn't want to hurt her.
When you did that, how did Ariana respond to that?
She didn't.
Did there come a time as you were doing that you heard sirens?
Yes.
When you heard the sirens and saying, well, what did you do?
I said they're not going to find us. And I grabbed her up and I ran out of that door.
When you go out the back door, you come around toward Kentucky or go south the state?
Around Kentucky.
When you come around the apartment building, an emergency vehicle or a police car or a fire department vehicle pulling up?
Yes.
Tell us about that. What do you do with Ariana when the vehicle's pulling up?
I run through the little walkway that we have, and the officer is parked a little ways down, and I come out, and I'm holding her, and I'm screaming, help my baby, and he's running towards us, and I fell to the ground, and I put her in the grass.
What happens then after you lay Ariana down?
He connected a device to her to try to get her heart to start.
I'm guessing that you remain right there.
Yes.
Do any other emergency vehicles pull up at that time?
Everybody. All the fire department, the EMS supervisor, some other officers, and the ambulance.
Do they join in the effort to try to resuscitate your daughter? What happens next? Does Ariana remain there at the scene, or is she immediately transported after a short period of time? Share that with us.
I believe after the ambulance got there, they tried for a few minutes on the ground, and then they moved her to the ambulance. And I remember looking at an officer, asking them why the ambulance was still there and why they hadn't left yet.
Did you look inside the ambulance to see what they were doing with Ariana?
They had the doors closed.
Okay. So you couldn't tell what medical procedures they were using there?
Yep.
Does the ambulance remain at the scene, or does it leave at some point?
It left after what felt like hours.
When it left, what request did you make about accompanying your daughter?
They asked if I was going to drive there, and I told them that there was no way that I could drive, so they rushed me over to the EMS supervisor's truck, and he drove me
Where?
to Fleming Hospital.
When did Ariana get there first? Did you get there at the same time, or did you beat the ambulance?
She got there first.
In the emergency department?
Yes.
witness Ariana being taken out of the ambulance and then the building?
No.
Was she already in the building?
Yes.
Did you go in the building
Yes.
as soon as you could?
Yes.
I won't go through all of the things that were done there because I guess I'm going to do a number of things. Did you, at some point in time, encounter the doctor who was in charge of her care?
Yes.
And describe for us, if you would, Ms. Engel, piece by piece, but in the general sense, what did you see that really tried to help Ariana with?
They had intubated her.
Put a tube down her throat?
Yes.
Okay.
And they were doing CPR, and I'm not sure what else they were doing because there were so many people around her.
Based on what you saw or what you were advised by the staff, were they ever able to get Ariana breathing on her own?
No.
Were they able to get a pulse? Something.
They got a heart to start, yes.
How long did Ariana remain pleasant before she was transported?
Not very long. Maybe an hour.
Where was she transported to in West?
Cardinal Glennon in St. Louis, Missouri.
And did you go on the helicopter with her?
I wasn't allowed.
How did you go to Cardinal Glen that afternoon or evening?
That evening.
How did you get there?
Me and her father and my father and my stepmother drove down that night.
Did you mean your mother and your stepfather?
No,
Okay. So we're talking about
a different set, yeah.
okay. How long did you get Cardinal Glen? How long in terms of hours or days did you remain at Cardinal Glen before you
We were at Cardinal Glennon from January 20th to January 23rd.
I'm going to show you a photograph which I have shared with defense counsel. It is marked as People's Exhibit number 5. I want to show it to you. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Who is the subject who's shown in that photograph?
My daughter, Ari.
Where was that photograph taken?
Let's see. I believe that was at Blessing.
And how can you tell? What is it about that photograph that helps you?
I'm holding the onesie that they had taken into evidence.
There is a hand that appears to be extended to Ariana's head. Whose hand is that?
That's mine.
Does that photograph, does angle accurately show the appearance and condition of your daughter Ariana as they cared for her at Blessing Hospital?
Yes.
I move for introduction into evidence.
Mr. Nelson, any objection to the admission of People's Exhibit number 5? No objection. Any objection to its publication? When you're ready, counsel, you may publish that. The record should reflect that People's Exhibit 5 is admitted into evidence without objection.
Can you bring the lights on? Thank you. Sagel, the picture on the screen picture that's previously been marked for people's exhibit number?
Yes.
And is the baby shown in that picture your daughter Ariana?
Yes.
As she was being cared for at West?
Yes.
In the left part of that photograph, cradling Ariana's head, whose hand?
It was mine.
Does that photograph accurately show her condition or her appearance? Her appearance. As you found her at the apartment at
Yes.
At any time during her care there at Blessing Hospital, did Ariana respond in any way by movement?
No.
Other than there appears to be a tubing device with a bend in it that extends down into Ariana's either nose or mouth covered by gold. You see that?
Yes.
What was, as best you understood, the purpose of that device?
It was breathing for her.
Did Ariana ever open her eyes?
No.
When was the last time you saw Ariana's eyes?
That morning before I left.
I just want to clear up one potentially confusing thing with you, Zango. It appears that a staff person is holding in that tubing, and it says what appears to be most of the word cardinal. That's not cardinal blend, is it?
They were getting ready to move her into the helicopter at that point.
And that would, as best you knew, a cardinal blending staff person?
Yes.
Okay. Can you bring the lights up? Zango. About what time did you get the
Rob and Stacy Williams.
One moment, Sheriff. Okay, hang on.
Could you step out for me, please? Could you step out?
Folks, if there's anyone else that has a cell phone that's turned on in the audience, I'd ask that you please leave, or from now on, please leave your cell phones or other devices outside the courtroom, or turn them off. So with that, go ahead, Mr. Barnard.
I'm not going to get all judgmental, Judge. Because Ms. Engel, what time did you arrive?
I'm not 100% sure.
Right.
Maybe 5 or 6.
I assume at some point in time you met with the staff or some member of the staff at Cardinal Glen
Yes.
about Ariana's condition.
Yes.
When was the first time you were briefed on Ariana's condition after she arrived?
When I arrived at Cardinal Glen, they were in the process of trying to get a secondary line, and they had said that it was possible that they would have to take her in and surgically place the line.
From the time that Ariana arrived at Cardinal Glen until the evening of January 22nd, were you able to have any kind of contact with Ariana, either visually or touching her or anything like that? What part of the hospital, if you know, was she placed in for her care?
She was in the PICU.
PICU, that's P-I-C-U, right?
Yes.
That's an acronym for Pediatric Intensive Care Unit?
Yes.
Did she remain there until the evening of January 22nd?
She was there until January 23rd.
As best you knew, based on your observation or anything that was shared with you, did Ariana's condition improve or change in any way for the better while she was a Cardinal?
No.
Did there come a time, Ms. Engel, when the staff approached you about the prognosis for Ariana and what your options were?
They needed to do the brain death test, and in order to conclude that she was in fact brain dead, they had to do that over, they had to do 2 tests over a certain amount of time.
And what, can you tell us if you know what amount of time, according to what they shared with you, did they need to wait after the first test before they did the second?
24 hours.
When was the first neurological test done to determine whether or not there was any brain?
I believe that they had one on the 21st, but I'm not 100% sure.
When, as best you know, was the last?
January 22nd at 9:30 p.m.
Given Ariana's condition, given what you knew, given what you were told, Ms. Engel, in terms of a religious ceremony, what did you authorize?
I baptized her myself.
Where did that take place?
In the PICU, in her room.
Were you there with her?
Yes.
Did you touch her?
Yes.
What time and what day?
I baptized her January 22nd in the afternoon.
Based on the result of the, well, as best you know, what was the result of the first neurological test to determine whether or not she had the brain?
I'm going to object to this. It's hearsay.
That's a fair objection.
I will sustain the objection.
I'll ask another question. Ms. Engel, when, I think you said the second neurological test was done at 9:30?
PM, yes.
Based on the result of that test, what action was taken by the medical staff concerning her?
I had been asked to take her off of life support.
Based on the results of the second neurological test done at 9:30 on the night of the 22nd, what did you tell her to do?
I authorized.
And when was Ariana announced?
Technically, there's 2 different times. The first one was January 22nd at 9:30 p.m. And I took her off of life support in the early mornings of January 23rd.
What procedure, as best you know, on regarding the body's organ warning January 23rd? Talking about that.
Yeah, that's,
Did you authorize that?
yeah.
That done, as best you know, in the morning of January 23rd?
As far as I know.
From the time you got home to the apartment on the afternoon of January 20th until Ariana was pronounced dead in the night of the 22nd morning, did you ever talk with Travis Wiley about his explanation, other than on the phone when he said she was alive?
No.
Ms. Engel, as you look around the room, you see the man on the Travis.
Yes.
That big man in the gray suit, gray shirt, silver tie.
Yes.
I'd ask the record to reflect witnesses identified at the front.
The record will so reflect.
All the questions I have. We're either going to break or we're going to be asking questions.
Mr. Nelson, it would be your turn to cross-examine. It's now 25 after 12. We have not yet had our lunch break. Direct examination took possibly longer than expected. Would you prefer to do that now, or do you want to break for lunch and come back and conduct cross-examination? We can break for lunch. Okay. Then, ladies and gentlemen, it's 25 after 12. We're going to break for lunch. I'd ask that you return to the jury room at, let's say, 20 minutes to 2, and we'll begin shortly thereafter. I need to admonish you, as I have every time you've left the courtroom, not to conduct any investigation on your own. You're to rely on the evidence that you hear in the courtroom. You're not to discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else. You're not to read or consult any type of media, via electronic means or any other means during the break. So at this time, you're excused from the courtroom. Before that, as a witness, Ms. Engel, you may step down and exit the courtroom. I'd ask that you please not discuss your testimony today. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, you are now free to leave.
Okay, we are back on the record in case 18 CF 492, People versus Travis Wiley. Mr. Wiley is present. His counsel, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Barnard, on behalf of the people. We're outside the presence of the jury. The witness, Ms. Engel, has resumed her position on the stand. Ms. Engel, I would remind you on the record that you're still under oath.
Okay.
Okay. At this time, let's have the jury. I know they're all present. We're actually 2 minutes before I told them to be back, but they're all here, so we're good.
All rise. The Session Circuit Court is now reconvened with the Honorable Michael L. Atterbury, Judge presiding. You may be seated.
Okay, it is now 1:40 p.m. All 12 members of the jury are back in the courtroom, along with 3 alternate jurors. The witness, Ms. Engel, is still on the stand. Mr. Nelson, cross-examination.
Thank you. Ms. Engel, in the days leading up to January 20th, 2018, Ariana was a little bit fussier than usual, is that correct?
Yes.
And can you tell us about when or how many days prior to January 20th you noticed Ariana becoming fussy?
It was maybe 5-6 days.
Okay. And was she fuss for any particular length of time?
No, it was just a uncomfortable kind of fuss.
On the day of January 20th, 2018, did you notice anything about Ariana's temperature?
It wasn't high. I can't remember the exact temperature that she had.
Do you recall if she felt warmer than she normally felt on that particular day?
Not that I remember.
Do you recall having a conversation with Detective Eddie about that?
Honestly, I do not.
At some point in time, perhaps a week prior to January 20th, Ariana had an incident where she stopped breathing, or I believe you indicated she held her breath. Is that
Yes.
correct? And do you recall about how many days prior to January 20th that was?
I do not.
But at the time, what was your reaction to that experience?
I stared at her to see how long it was going to be. Like I said earlier, my 13-year-old used to do the same thing.
Right. This was the first time that this had happened with Ariana?
Yes.
And did you freak out at all over that?
I just kind of stared at her. It wasn't really like a freak out type of situation. I was just making sure that she didn't change colors, didn't stop, responding or anything.
So you did not freak out at that time?
No, there was no need to.
Okay. And how long before she began her normal breathing pattern again?
Maybe 5-6 seconds.
Do you recall making any phone calls after this incident to anyone in regard to this incident?
No, I did not make a phone call.
No other questions?
Any redirect, Mr. Barnum?
Yes, Scott. I believe I may have asked you this. If I have, I apologize. How many times in her young life did this holding of the breath happen?
Just that one time.
And with regard to the questions you were asked about circumstances of the day of the 20th, you were asked about her being fussy. Did you cough?
No.
Did she wheeze when she breathed?
No.
Was there anything irregular about how she breathed?
No.
Like in terms of coarseness, thickness, kind of thing?
No.
Sneezing?
No.
Was she flush?
No.
But she was fussy.
Yes.
What was it you noticed about her teething? How did you know or conclude that she was teething a bit?
Her gums were swollen, and then it was verified at the hospital when they were placing the tube. They said, "Mom, look, she has a tooth."
Okay. Did you actually ever visualize it when the tooth kind of started to poke through?
I didn't look because of the tube.
Remember what it was like in the apartment that day, whether or not the apartment temperature was cool, normal, or warm?
It was comfortable.
Okay.
It wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cold.
Okay. You don't recall talking to the detective about that?
I know.
Okay. How many children do you have?
Altogether, I have 5.
In your experience as a mother, do children get fussy or infants get fussy when they teeth?
Yes, I have a teething toddler now.
Okay. I guess that's all the questions I have.
Any further questions, Mr. Nelson?
No, thank you.
All right, you, Mr. O'Donnell. Is Ms. Engel released from subpoena?
She is.
You may call another witness, Mr. Bonner.
Thank you, Your Honor. People call Lynette Richards. And if you would go before the clerk and raise your right hand, please.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
You may inquire, Mr. Barner.
Thank you, Judge. Would you share with the ladies and gentlemen the jury your full name?
Lynette Richards.
I'm going to need you to get a little closer to the microphone because sometimes we have trouble carrying our voices through this room. Where do you live, ma'am?
Durham, Missouri.
Are you married?
Yes.
What's your husband's name?
Jerry Richards.
Ms. Richards, Christina Engel, what relationship is she?
She was my daughter.
And I want to ask you about Ariana Hoffman Erdmann. First of all, did you have contact with Ariana from the time she was born until the time she passed away?
Yes.
Can you tell the folks on the jury how often you would see her? That is Ariana how often you cared for her during those 2 months, 3
It
months.
was off and on, whenever she needed me to watch Ariana, and then of course, they'd come over to the house.
If you were to try to give us an average of how many days out of the week, days out of the month, as the case may be, not many months, but can you tell us?
Maybe at least 2 times a week, 2, 3, it all depends.
In Ariana's 2 months and 3 weeks on this earth, can you tell us what you noticed about whether or not she seemed to have any unusual health or developmental problems?
No,
Did she? That you were able to see?
nothing that I noticed. No, she just had a little baby.
That would have been my next question. Would you describe, kind of how, in terms of how she behaved as a baby?
And she average baby, likes to coo. The last day that I seen her, she was teething, so she was making all these little bubbles, and they just nicknamed her Bubbles.
Let's go back to the day before January 20th, the day before Ariana was found like this. The day before January 20th, did you care for Ariana?
Yes, I did.
Tell us about that. Where was that? Did you go to Christina's apartment, or did you have her brought to you? Did you go to the apartment and pick her up, or take her somewhere? Tell us about that.
I went over to Christina's and picked her up. She was pretty much ready. She already ate. And we went to Hannibal. I had an errand to run. From there, we went back home. And then there's your normal baby, eat, sleep, and she woke up. Did like we normally did, go to the windows because it's too cold to go outside, and we have animals where we live at, and she kind of like looking out the windows at the goats and the animals and things.
What time of day, Ms. Richards, did you pick Ariana up in the morning of the 19th, the day before the 20th? What time of day was it that you picked her up?
It was right before, I think Christina had to be at work at like 10:30 or so it was maybe half hour, 20 minutes before she had to go to work.
When you picked her up, did you go right to your home in Durham, or did you go down to Hannibal?
We drove down to Hannibal.
When you went to your home in Durham?
Yeah.
What time did you return Ariana to Quincy, or did Christina come and pick her up?
The girls got off the bus, and Christina, I think she had something to do or something that was going a little bit longer than normal. I don't know, maybe 3:30, 4, maybe coming back over. I don't remember exactly what time.
Where was Ariana picked up or dropped off, as the case may be? In the late afternoon?
Christina's. At Christina's.
Who brought her back to Quincy?
I did.
Was your husband with you?
No.
Was your husband at home with you when you brought Ariana back to your home in Durham?
He was already home from work yesterday.
That last day that you spent with Ariana, the day before the 20th, can I ask you some questions about how she appeared? In the broadest sense, how did she appear health-wise?
Health-wise, she appeared fine. She was teething. I was giving her those little, those freezer teething out of the freezer because she just loved to chew on them. She's normal.
I asked you about some specific things about her appearance. Was there any, that day, throughout the day, or any part of the day, any coughing fits?
Not that I can recall.
How about sneezing?
No, she didn't have a cold.
Runny nose?
No, it wasn't loud bulge.
From hence the teething?
Yes.
Wheezing? Trouble breathing?
No.
She appeared flush or hot or had a fever?
Not that I recall. I for particular moments.
Anything that jumped out at you that Ariana just doesn't look or sound like?
No, nothing.
How about, her mood? What was her mood? Crying, fussy, happy? Sure then.
She was good and, like I said, we looked out the windows, looking at the animals. She enjoyed looking out the windows. It was country scenery.
When you dropped Ariana off back in Quincy, did you feel the need to tell Christina about any concerns about her health?
No.
Outside of the TV, anything out of the normal. Thank you, ma'am. That's all the questions I have. Mr. Nelson may have some questions.
Mr. Nelson, cross-examination.
Thank you. Ms. Richards, do you recall when you may have watched Ariana, when the last time is that you may have watched Ariana prior to January 19th?
Last time before.
Yeah, so you did watch Ariana the day before January 20th.
Yes.
So that would have been January 19th. Do you recall the last time prior to that you would have watched Ariana?
I'm thinking maybe a couple days before. Possibly somewhere in there.
And I realize this has been a long time ago. So either on that occasion, perhaps a couple of days prior to January 19th, or on January 19th, did you notice Ariana being any fussier than she had been in the past? And you did not notice Ariana being any warmer, particularly on January 19th?
No. And she, I guess it's an opinion as far as teething goes. You kind of have a little bit of a temperature. So, if she did, she wasn't red face like most babies or cheeks or whatever because they have a temperature. That was not getting anything like that from her.
Okay. When did you first become aware that Ariana was teething?
Probably the weekend before, somewhere in there. Christina was saying that she was teething. Wouldn't know what to do, and I was like, I don't know, ask your doctor. You can call them. They'll probably tell you to put some stuff on her gums or something, and that's about the time that I went and got the little teething rings.
So the you say the weekend prior?
Yeah, I would say it's roughly somewhere in there.
No other questions, thank you.
Redirect, Mr. Barnard.
None, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is Ms. Richards released?
She is.
Read out this way.
People call Jerry Richards.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Step around. Please feel free to adjust the microphone and try to speak into it as much as you can. Thank you. All right, go ahead, Mr. Barnard.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Richards, would you introduce yourself to the jury by sharing your full name?
My name is Gerald Andrew Richards. I go by Jerry.
Where do you live?
In Durham, Missouri.
Are you married?
Yes.
You passed your wife on the way into the courtroom?
Yes, I did.
Mr. Richards, I want to ask you some questions about granddaughter, wife's granddaughter, Ariana Hoffman. Okay?
Okay.
Did you have contact with Ariana from the time she was born until the time she died?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
As kind of grandparent contact?
Yeah, my wife would watch her usually when I was at work, and she'd watch her during the day or something, or we might have her into the evening. I'd get home from work, and she'd still be there until she brought her back.
Would that be as a result of Christina being at work?
Yes.
And she had to run an errand or something?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you about what you noticed about Ariana's growth, development, and health.
Okay.
In the 2 months or 3 weeks of her life, how did she appear to you in terms of whether or not she appeared to have any health problems?
She was fine. I held her. I wasn't at the hospital when she was born, and I was at home or at work, I believe. But a few days after that, came home, held her, as I normally would, and then other times at the house, I'd hold on to her, and absolutely fine. And she got to the point, where it was when a child gets that age, they get that twinkle in their eye when they see you, and recognize you.
As she grew to 2 months, 3 weeks of age, can you share with us whether or not she appeared to be a sickly child, a healthy child, something in between?
No, she was fine. She was healthy. She was strong. I mean, she, I guess, developed as far as, like trying to hold her head up and, things that she'd do at that age, I think. But there wasn't ever any indication of anything wrong.
I want to ask you about the day before Ariana was found like this.
Okay.
It's my understanding from what your wife shared with us that Ariana spent daylight hours, a good part of it, at your home in Durham, Missouri.
That's correct.
Were you at home when Ariana and your wife arrived?
Yeah, I got off work, and they were already home when I got there, but yeah, I got off work and came home and they were there.
Did anything stand out to you? Anything you noticed about Ariana's health that day that struck you as her being ill?
No, not as being ill. I remember holding her, and she was pushing up with her legs as I was holding her, and kind of trying to stand.
Excuse me, I didn't mean to. How was her mood?
Good. I mean, it was the typical bubble blowing, kid that she was, and
happy, sad, fussy, crying?
for the time, she wasn't fussy at all for the time that I saw her. I wasn't there from the time that I got home until the time that Lynette and her came back over to Quincy, and that for that little bit of time, I didn't see any fussing at all.
You said you held her. Did she feel warm or feel flushed in any way?
Her face wasn't flush or anything like that. I don't remember anything about her feeling warm or anything, no.
Now I want to ask you about some specific things concerning what you noticed about her from her. Any coughing?
No.
Coughing fits?
No.
Runny nose?
No.
Wheezing?
No.
Shortness of breath?
No.
Difficulty breathing?
No, not at all.
About what time did your wife, Ariana, that afternoon, 19th, go back to Quincy and take her back from her?
I don't remember exactly. I got off work probably around 3. It doesn't take long to get home. Maybe 4:30 or so, somewhere in there.
Hour and a half when she was at your house?
Yeah, that I was there, yeah.
During which you held her?
Correct.
Watery eyes, anything like that?
No. Mm-mm.
Mr. Ritchie, that's all the questions I have. Mr. Nelson may have some questions for you.
Okay, Mr. Nelson, cross-examination.
Mr. Richards, do you recall when the last time was that you spent time with Ariana prior to the last day that you spent time with her?
I would say it was probably within the previous week, but I don't remember exactly just because that last day is kind of stuck in my mind.
On that occasion, would you have spent approximately the same amount of time with her that you spent with her on January 19th, approximately an hour and a half or so?
That'd be hard to say, because if it was a work day, it could be one thing. If a weekend, it could be something different. So I'd be guessing to say that that'd be accurate, what you're saying is.
Just don't recall.
Right.
No other questions?
Further questions, Mr. Barnard?
Oh, Your Honor.
Sir, you may sit down. Thank you. Mr. Richards, released from this appeal.
He is.
Further witnesses, Mr. Barnard.
People call Detective Kevin Towers.
solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Mr. Barnard, you may inquire.
Thank you, Judge. Would you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury by sharing with them your full name,
My name is Kevin Towdy,
your profession or occupation, sir?
police officer with the city of Quincy,
What is your present assignment?
currently assigned to patrol.
How long have you been a sworn law enforcement officer?
Over 22 years.
What was the first position and with what agency were you in law enforcement?
Patrol officer with the city of Quincy.
What year would that have been, given my math skills? I'm not sure.
September 10th of 2001.
I want to take you back to the year 2018. You would have been on the force 17 years-ish, right?
Correct.
As of the beginning of 2018, January 2018, what was your assignment or detail with Quincy Police?
I was a detective assigned with criminal investigations, adult criminal investigations with Quincy Police Department.
How long have you held that position as of January 1, 2018?
Approximately 2.5 years.
Tell us in the general sense, Officer Towdy, and by the way, what is your rank?
Patrol, so I am not a sergeant at patrol at the time of the detective, but I'm a patrol officer.
Okay, you returned to patrol?
That is correct.
Okay. What is the role of a detective within a police department, let's say, relative to a patrol officer?
So investigations is support role to, Christian investigations support role to patrol, in addition to working more in-depth investigations, police matters that entail a lot more follow-up, a lot more in-depth interviews and investigations, and to include further training than the typical patrol assignments are.
Okay. Do the follow-up in more complicated investigations?
Correct.
Okay. Including interviews?
Yes.
Evidence gathering?
Yes.
I'm sure there are more things to do, but would that be a fair, partial definition?
In a general sense, yes.
All right. I'll take you back to January 2018 and home in on the afternoon of January 20th. Were you on duty on the afternoon on January 20th, 2018?
I was not.
What was your status in terms of being on call as a detective?
Yes, we have a rotational on-call, and on that particular day I was on call, which means my assignment is to be available for any assistance for patrol for, as we described, further investigations.
I take it that with the exception of on-call duties, that detectives have a pretty much daytime schedule?
That is correct.
Okay. What day of the week was January 20th, 2018?
Saturday.
As such, would you have been on duty or off duty?
Off duty.
But on call as you shared?
On that day, yes.
Were you called from home at any time during that day?
Yes.
Approximately what time?
It was 3:23 p.m.
And what were you dispatched or assigned to do?
We were dispatched to assigned to come in for, there was a 911 call for a baby in distress. The baby was transported to the hospital. At that time it was considered to be severe, but the outcome unknown, whether that the baby's life was in danger or if question in danger as in the sense if it was the baby was going to live or not, but it was severe.
When you left home, where did you go, Officer Towdy?
I went to Quincy Police Department first to gather equipment needed to respond to from there.
given your role as a detective, what kind of equipment would you have gathered to aid in what you were about to do, given what you knew?
One, it would have been our actual vehicle, a patrol vehicle versus my personal vehicle. It would have a notebook, pen, paper, cards, evidence gathering items to include camera, a video camera, as such.
Once you gathered that equipment, where did you go from there?
I went to Blessing Emergency Room.
Blessing.
Emergency Room?
And who did you encounter there?
I would have met with the responding officer who would have gone to the hospital after the point. The child was transported by ambulance to the ER.
Where you have a situation of, as you were advised, of a child, an infant in distress, outcome unknown, what is the Quincy Police Department policy regarding what resources it's going to deploy to deal with that?
It could include numerous detectives, also a crime scene technician.
And would that be pursuant to regular department policy when you don't know what the cause of the condition is or the outcome of the child?
Yes.
Is it fair for us to assume, Officer Towdy, that you would have gathered as much pertinent information as you could there at the hospital by talking with folks?
Yes.
Who did you talk to?
I would have spoke to the mother and the father of the child.
The mother of the child, her name?
I believe now it's Christina Engel. At that time it was Christina Hoffman.
Might it have been Hunford?
Correct. Excuse me.
You said you spoke with the father of the child. Who would that have been? What was his name?
Jordan Paget.
They were there at the hospital?
Yes.
Who else did you talk with there at the hospital?
I would have spoke to emergency personnel, and I would have spoke to the officer that would have responded to the emergency room.
Who was the officer that responded to the emergency?
It was Officer Hatch.
Kyle Hatch?
Correct.
While you were there at the hospital, were you able to make contact with, these visual contact, with the child who was the subject of the ambulance call?
Not close proximity from the hallway to the emergency room. It was briefly. They were preparing the child to be transported to St. Louis for further, more in-depth treatment by the Children's Services in St. Louis.
What time did you get to the hospital?
I got there at approximately 4:15 p.m.
And what time did the transport vehicle, the helicopter, take off from Blessing?
I do not know what time it took off.
Were you there when it took off?
I was.
Did you make contact with any of the first responders or the medical staff?
I did. I spoke to Dr. Walson briefly as he's moving in and out of the room due to the severity of it.
Okay. Based on the information that you gathered with regard to the age of the child, the condition of the child, the plan for the child, what did you do next to follow up with your work on this situation?
We always have to take in consideration the injury, or should say the condition of the child could have been as of natural causes, or it always could be a situation where we have an injury that occurred accidental or from neglect and or potential battery that would have caused injury to the child.
Based on the totality of the information that you had gleaned there at the hospital, did anybody know what accounted for or caused the condition of this child?
At that time, no.
Would it be fair for us to assume that in terms of the cause of the condition of this infant, you were dealing with pretty much a blank slate?
That is correct.
What time did you leave the hospital, Detective? Excuse me, I keep calling you Detective because that's what you were back then, so don't feel bad about correcting me. Officer Towers, what time did you leave the hospital?
It was approximately 5:30 p.m.
Was Ariana Hoffman still at the hospital when you left?
I believe she was flown out in the time frame that I was speaking with the mother and the father in a family room.
When you left the hospital at 5:30 or so, where did you go?
I went to the location where the ambulance and officers were dispatched where the incident occurred at 718 Kentucky in Quincy, Illinois.
And when you arrived there, did you make contact with anyone there seen at 718 Kentucky?
Yes, it would have been the officers on the scene, to include Officer Hatch, because when I arrived at the hospital, I asked for him to respond to assist with securing the scene at the house, the apartment.
What other officers were there at the scene when you arrived?
I believe at that time it was only Officer Sloop and would have been Officer Sparks.
Whose name is now?
Hollensteiner.
Officer Jessica Hollensteiner?
That is correct.
Did you gather more information from those officers on the scene to help you develop a plan to try to sort out what happened?
Yes, we'd have to go back to the hospital at that time frame. Was speaking with the mother, who knew she was a resident. She was able to confirm with me that the child was left into the custody of her boyfriend. So at that time, I knew I needed to look at the residence, look inside the residence. So I got verbal and written consent to take photographs and to go inside the apartment.
Again, with this, given that you didn't know, didn't have any information to explain why this child was in the condition it was, would the request for consent be routine?
Yes.
Okay. Who did you obtain that consent from?
First, I was from the mother, Christina.
Did you request consent from anyone at the scene of the apartment?
Correct. Yes, and I was told by the officers that the boyfriend named Travis Wiley was still at the house. So one of the first things I did when I got to the apartment, I asked where his location was when I got there.
Did you approach, you described him as a boyfriend, what was his name?
Travis Wiley.
Did you approach Travis Wiley or have him pointed out to you there at the apartment?
Yes.
And where was he located when you tried to find him?
It was still fairly cold, and it was getting to be late in the afternoon. It was getting dark, so it was cold. So he was sitting inside of a personally owned vehicle with another female.
Who was the other female?
Melissa Enning.
Is that when you asked him to get his consent to go into the apartment and take photographs?
Yes.
After you obtained consent, did you do just that, go into the apartment and take photographs?
Yes.
Okay. Would that have been a brief conversation, or did you discuss other subjects with Mr. Wiley in the process of getting consent?
Yes, there would have been other things I would discuss before going inside the apartment.
Okay. Let me ask you about that. What questions did he ask, or did you ask him? What information did he give you?
Excuse me?
In the process of getting consent in that conversation, when you went to the car and you sitting in the car, what questions did you ask of him other than, hey, can I go into the apartment?
Well, I told him that I knew that the child was in the custody of him. I was told by the officers from statements they had received from him, kind of the general outline of what had occurred, so I had a baseline of what the incident occurred. I told him that since he was a child in his custody, I needed to talk to him further. I told him that I asked him that he needed to come to the police department, and he complied to do that, and I was having him be transported by Officer Hatch.
Okay. Now, you mentioned going into the apartment and taking photographs. Did you do all of that before you talked to him at the police department?
No, it would have been I'm sorry, go ahead. The photographs would have moved forward. I talked to them at the police department?
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay. I've got some photographs I'm going to show you, and let's get to that, so we'll deal with that. First of all, so we can kind of establish a baseline, Officer Howdy, I'm going to show you what's previously been admitted into evidence as People's Exhibit number 2. Whoa, I want to turn that around. Okay. You recognize what's shown in that photograph?
Yes. Yes.
And what's shown in that photograph?
That is the entrance door to the apartment at 718 Kentucky where Travis and Christina lived.
And would what we're seeing in the photograph actually be the south side of that apartment building?
Correct. It would be the south side, the entrance to the back side of the building off of the alley.
Between Kentucky and State?
Correct.
All right. Now, next thing I want to show you which has previously been introduced into evidence, People's Exhibit number 4. You recognize what's shown in that photograph?
Yes.
Let me ask you, does that photograph actually or accurately show items inside of that apartment in the location where they were when you walked in, having been given consent?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to use my laser pointer here to ask you specific things. I'm circling an item in the lower right-hand corner of that photograph. What is that item I just circled?
It is a rock and play, which was described by the officers from statements received from the mother and from Mr. Wiley, and depicted to me by Christina at the hospital, a location where the baby would have been prior to Christina getting home.
Now, I'm going to show you or circle another item in the center left lower corner. What is the item I just circled?
That is a couch in the living room.
When you walked in and saw these things, where they were as they're shown in the photograph, can you tell us how close that rock and play is positioned relative to the couch?
I would say approximately 2 foot.
We can bring the lights up. Thank you. Now, I'm going to ask you to step down for a moment, if I may. And I'm going to show you what I have previously marked, but has not yet been introduced into evidence. It's People's Exhibit number 3. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. It has some brown wrapping around it, and I want to ask you if you could remove that for us. Or first of all, where's that brown wrapping coming?
From the police department, from where we would package evidence.
All right. Seeing how I don't have any scissors, I'll ask you to unwrap or unrip that. You may need some scissors.
Do you want me to put gloves on?
Yeah, go ahead. You got any gloves over there?
I don't know.
I can have the great scissors.
Ladies and gentlemen, while we're waiting, if you wish to stretch, go ahead. Probably be a good time for that.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, officer, if you would do the honors here. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do, Officer Towdy, so that we can get an idea of the size and configuration of this, if you would kind of unpack it or unfold it as the case may be. Now, Officer Towdy, based on the configuration of that, what I'm going to ask you to do is first kind of hold it up and, I'm not going to ask you to do that. What I'm going to ask you to do is ask you to share with me is whether or not this rock and play item appears to be in the same condition as it was when you saw it the first time in that apartment.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Anything changed about it in any material way in terms of its shape or configuration?
No.
I'm going to move for introduction into evidence of People's Exhibit number 3 for demonstrative purposes. I'm not seeking for it to go back to the jury, but I do want to at least be able to show it to the jury.
Mr. Nelson, any objection to the admission of People's Exhibit 3?
No.
Without objection, it's admitted, and you have permission to publish or do what it is you wish.
Yeah. Officer Towdy, what I would ask that you do is perhaps kind of have it face the jury and perhaps tilt it so that we can see the configuration of it. All right? And you might want to pan it out so that everyone on the jury can see it. Okay. Now, while you're holding it there in more of an upright position, I'm pointing toward the lower part where it's tilted upward. Which part of this rock and play, if you will, as it is designed to where the feet go over the child is placed in?
At the base right here.
Looks like there's a kind of a snap clasp thing that you use to
Yes, this was
secure a baby.
Correct. It's come up from underneath the legs and the strap is just going around the side on the left and the right side of the hip, buckle and trying to prevent it from falling out.
All right. Can you share with us, either by description or demonstration, whether or not this item is designed to rock back and forth in any way?
Yes, it is.
Which way?
So it goes back
Okay.
and forth.
Such that as it rocks, the feet would elevate and then lower?
Correct.
At the same time the head is lowering and elevating?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I'll see if that comes. And I'll take this over. Officer Towdy, after you took photographs. Was there anything else you did that comes to mind in processing the scene or examining the scene?
In totality of just searching the residence in entirety, include the bedrooms and bathrooms, items that if something drew our attention to anything, we searched for that, just looking underneath the couches, for trash cans, and taking complete photographs.
Would, again, this be pursuant to your routine protocol when you have an unexplained collapse of the roof?
Yes.
Okay. So you get done doing those things there at the apartment. What do you do next? Where do you go next?
I went directly to the Quincy Police Department.
You had mentioned that you had asked to talk with Travis Wiley, and he indicated he would talk to you?
Yes.
What instructions did you give to him in terms of, or requests did you make of him in terms of where you would like to talk?
Quincy Police Department.
Why did you choose that place?
Because it's a formal interview, and also a location where we could video and record, audio and video record the interview.
Okay. I'll come back to that part of it in a moment. When you went to the Quincy Police Department, what time did you arrive?
It's approximately, I believe, 6:30 p.m.
Was Mr. Wiley there?
He was.
All right. And did you proceed to one of your interview rooms?
I did.
Was it your plan to audio and video record this interview?
Yes, that was my plan.
Was this a voluntary interview or a custodial?
Voluntarily.
Was Mr. Wiley free to leave if he chose to do so?
He was not at that point.
Okay, why not?
Not knowing the condition of the child, if this was potentially a battery investigation or a possible death investigation.
Okay. So is that why you would have been in a secure room?
Yes.
Okay. And before interviewing him, did you engage or thought you engaged the recording equipment?
I gave instructions to Officer Hatch prior to leaving the scene as soon as he was placed in the interview room, as described before. We recently obtained a new digital recording system. Officer Hatch appeared to be confident that it was activated. I don't know if it was an error on Officer Hatch or a glitch of the system, but later discovered it was not being recorded.
Did you interview Mr. Wiley at that point?
I did.
When did you learn that the recording equipment didn't work?
At the conclusion of the interview.
How did that make you feel?
Not very good.
Okay. Having dealt with that issue, let's now move to what you talked with him about.
Okay.
Okay? I take it you were interested in finding out from him his version of what happened.
Correct.
Okay. What information, if any, did you have at that point about how this child came to be found in the condition in which she was?
I was told by officers on the scene that, and also from the mother, Christina, with conversations they had with Mr. Wiley, that he had waken up from a nap on the couch, and the child was placed in that rock and play. We presented to the jury a moment ago that he placed the child in that rock and play, which was in close proximity to the couch where he had taken a nap. Upon waking up from that nap, he observed the condition of Mariana, which would have been in distress to the point of unconscious, pale skin, lips were blue to indicate to him that the child wasn't breathing or was already deceased.
Now, did you proceed to ask him questions in perhaps more detail about his timeline, what he saw, what he noticed, what he did after he said he saw Ariana in this condition. He asked him all those questions?
I did.
Okay. Let's start here. According to what he told you in that interview, what time did Christine Dunford, now Christina Engel, place that child into his care?
Your Honor, here I'm going to have to object on the basis of the pretrial motions that have been filed and heard.
I'm just stating that. We can have,
yeah, let's
I think there's some moment if we're trying to.
If you need to stand and stretch, you can.
You may all be seated. Okay, for the record, following a short conference among counsel that the court held in chambers, there was a previous question. Mr. Barnard, at this point I'm going to have you repeat your question, but first off, there was an objection to that question. Upon more hearing of the circumstances, the court is going to deny the objection. And if you wish to ask the question again, Mr. Barnard, you may.
I'm going to ask the court reporter if she would do that only because I'm sure I'll not be able to stay.
Sure.
Question. Okay, let's start here. According to what he told you in that interview, what time did Christina Dunford, Christina Ingram now place,
Engel,
thank you, place that child into his care?
Okay. Did you hear what the court reporter read back, officer?
Yes.
And what was his answer to that question about what time she placed Ariana into his care?
A time of 10:30 a.m.
What did he tell you, either pursuant to a question you asked or on his own, about what kind of condition Ariana Hoffman was in when Christina Dunford Engel went to work? What condition was Ariana in according to?
In addition to the history questions I asked that he knew of her general condition overall, said that she was a perfectly happy, healthy baby. But in addition to the fact that day, that morning, she had been a little fussy, which they suspected was because she had been constipated.
And what did he, in fact, did he tell you anything about how or to what extent or anything he did about the condition?
Oh, he was going to lay her down for a nap. In addition for being fussy to try to get her to take a nap, he made a bottle for her and placed some Gas-X for babies by placing a droplet on the inside of her, on her mouth, on her nose.
Now, again, I probably jumped ahead a little bit in asking you that question, but what did Travis Wiley tell you, either in response to your question or in the course of other discussion? What did he say about how Ariana behaved up until, let's say, 1:30?
Your Honor, I'm just going to object. I would ask that the court note my continuing objection on the same basis.
That continuing objection will be noted. That objection is overruled.
The baby had been fussy up to the point that he put her down for a nap. She fell asleep, and then he concluded to fall asleep.
All right. I want to talk about times now, okay? There was a call to 911 that you became aware of, correct?
Yes.
And if we assume for purposes of my question that that call came into 911 in the neighborhood of 2:41 p.m., what did Travis Wiley tell you was the amount of time that passed between the time he laid her down and the time he noticed her to be lifeless?
He described between 45 minutes to 1 hour.
Okay. And I forgot to put one thing in there that I'm now going to ask you about. He said that he laid her down, gave her a bottle, and what did he do when he gave her the bottle?
He took a nap.
Where did he tell you he took a nap?
On that couch that we saw in the photograph.
And based on the time of the 911 call, give or take, approximately what time would that have been that he was late?
Just before, anywhere from 1:45 to approximately 2 o'clock.
Okay. He gave you two time frames, right? 45 minutes to an hour?
Correct.
We assume it was an hour.
Correct.
Where would it, what time would that timeline find him giving the baby the bottle, laying it down, and then he went?
Give him the bottle prior to him falling asleep, 1:15 to 1:30.
Okay. Now, let's move forward a bit. Did you ask him about what he noticed when he woke up from his nap?
Yes.
And what did he tell you, or first of all, did he tell you why he woke up?
To go to the bathroom.
When he woke up, and I'm assuming this rocket play is literally 2 feet or so away from him, what did he tell you he noticed about her?
That she was not conscious, that her skin was pale in color, and that her lips were blue.
And what did he tell you he did when he noticed that or saw that?
He said that he tried to fight back his panic, and he picked her up out of the rock and play, and he took her into the bedroom, which would be to the left of the couch. and attempted to do CPR on her on the bed in the bedroom.
Did he mention anything about returning the baby to the rocking play?
He did.
Okay. And then what did he tell you he did?
He said he attempted to make several calls to 911 and said that were unsuccessful and was not able to, the calls were not going through and he was disconnected.
When that occurred, according to what he said to you, what did
He called Christina.
And what did he tell you he said to her?
To come home now because Ariana was needed help.
What did he tell you, if anything, about calling anyone else before you called Christina or called 911?
I do not believe he mentioned it. I'm not sure that I even asked him that question.
Did he mention on his own calling anyone else?
My recollection.
At that time, Ariana was at Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital in St. Louis, correct?
Yeah, whatever time frame it would take him to fly the child to St. Louis.
Because this would have been the evening of January 20th, right?
Correct.
Other than his version, his timeline, did you have any other information about what explained Ariana's condition?
I did not.
And when you were finished with that conversation, well, first of all, how long did that conversation at the police station with Travis Wiley last?
Approximately 1 hour to 1.5 hours.
When that conversation was concluded, where did Travis Wiley go?
He was allowed to leave the department and he requested to walk.
Okay. And did you comply with that request?
I did. I walked him to the exterior of our department.
All right. When, Officer Cowdy, did you next learn any information that would have related to, directly or circumstantially, related to what explained Ariana's collapse?
As I was able to make a contact, and I had a point of contact at Cardinal Glennon in St. Louis over that evening, the following day on Sunday. I had contact numerous times about that condition. I believe it would have been Sunday or even late Saturday night that I learned that they discovered there was some injuries to her head.
Okay. Even at that point, during those first conversations with Cardinal Glennon, was there any explanation for why that head condition, as you described it, occurred?
No, and I would not have made contact with Cardinal Glennon until after Mr. Wiley had left his department.
All right. When were you advised that Ariana Hoffman had passed away?
Well, I knew that it was forthcoming. When I spoke to personnel in Cardinal Glennon, after they were going to be doing some testing on her on Sunday, testing for brain activity, and I was told that they were waiting for her family's decision for her family to come be with her before they pulled her off the ventilator.
Even at that point, when the decision was made, did you have any information other than what you just shared with us about what would have explained Ariana's death?
No.
After life support was discontinued and she was pronounced dead on the evening of January 22nd, what procedure, medical procedure, occurred to try to determine the cause of Ariana's death?
So we knew that an autopsy would be conducted since the fact that happened where the death actually occurred in St. Louis, that there was going to be an autopsy conducted, and with it being in that jurisdiction, that's where the autopsy was conducted in the city of St. Louis.
Was that autopsy actually performed?
It was.
On what day?
It would have been on the 22nd.
Were you present?
I was.
Actually, would it have been the next day on the 23rd?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And who performed that autopsy?
Dr. Williams. Dr. Peter Williams.
First name?
Peter.
Peter. And who was his supervisor at that time?
Dr. Scantleberry.
That's spelled
How it's going?
Scantleery, I believe. Well, I'm not sure you should trust me. I've done very well. Did you see both Dr. Scantleberry and Dr. Williams that day while you were there?
Yes.
Was a formal final autopsy report addressing the cause of death issued on the 23rd?
It was not.
Did you discuss with Dr. Williams and or Dr. Scantleberry any preliminary impressions or findings they came to after the autopsy?
Yes.
And let me stop you there. What additional studies other than the autopsy dissection itself were either commissioned or performed?
There was further testing done on the retina and ocular testing that they described to me that would have to occur in the days, weeks ahead before they could issue a final autopsy result.
And what did you learn about whether or not they wanted that before they made a final decision?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase the question?
Did you learn that they needed that information and wanted that information in order to help them make a final cause of death determination?
A final cause for court purposes and or for finalization purposes, yes.
Okay. As it turns out, Officer Cowdy, how long did it take to get those supplemental studies, I'll call them, back in aid of issuing a final report by Dr. Williams and Dr. Scantleberry?
Unfortunately, I was not able to obtain those until June of that year.
So we're talking about basically 5+ months later, right?
That is correct.
I want to take a step back, if I may. I'm going to address a different subject here, Judge, and I'm noticing the clock, and I just wanted to...
Yes, it is 3 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, we have not yet taken our afternoon break. And up front, I did promise you at least one afternoon break, so I think now is the time to do that. We're about to change topics here with the witness. At this time, Detective Cowdy, Officer Cowdy, I will allow you to leave. I would advise you to be back on the stand at 3:15, and in the interim, do not discuss your testimony with either of them. Okay? With that, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I need to admonish you again, for the record, we're going to take a 15-minute break, so I need you to be back in the jury room and ready to go at 3:15. During the break, do not discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else via any means. Do not let anyone discuss it with you. Do not undertake to do any research or investigation of any matter involving this case on your own. And with that, I will allow you to exit the courtroom.
All rise. Session Second Circuit Court stands in recess.
You may all be seated. The record should reflect that the 12 members of the jury, the 3 alternate jurors, have all exited the courtroom. The door is closed. Counsel and Mr. Wiley are all still present. Before we recess, counsel, any matters that need to be discussed? Mr. Nelson?
No.
Mr. Barker?
No, Your Honor.
We will stand in recess until 3:15.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. Muddy River News. Our home. Our news.